A little bit about me. Yes, I've been doing SEO for a long time, 12 years. Before I started SEO Radar, working for large companies, mostly large, complex sites like Trulia, Everyday Health. Trulia was the last company. Before I went on my own, and working for so long in SEO, I've had my share of, those good days when you go in. I look at Google Analytics every morning and traffic's going like that. That's really nice, and you feel good and you feel smart. People think you're smart. But I've had those other days too, when you go in and something goes like this, and those days are horrible. I remember I was working for a startup, and my CEO, he was about to go into a board meeting, and I'm looking at 20%. He's about to go in to tell him how great everything's going, and he passes by me and have to break the news to him, and probably started about one of the worst weeks of my life, as I'm sure a lot of people had to deal with issues like that. So I started SEO Radar a couple of years ago. It's a software platform that is going to monitor your site and tell you things that you need to know when things break. I'll tell you more about that later. So let's get started. Let's take a look at this clown. Take 10 seconds at this clown. This clown is a very well-optimized clown. Kids laugh. Even Kramer likes this clown. Usually he's scared of clowns. And what does this have to do with SEO? We'll find out later. So let's talk about SEO. It's kind of like a really good meal. You got to get all the ingredients right. It's a combination. It's a delicate balance of a lot of different ingredients that as SEOs we're responsible for keeping all those things in balance and make sure we end up with a delicious stew. But there's a problem sometimes usually to cook a great recipe. You like to have maybe just one chef. But with our websites, we have all sorts of chefs. We've got product people changing things. We've got UX people. I worked for a company where the CEO was always upsetting everybody with urgent fixes, and urgent fixes have a tendency to break things. Content people, and of course our engineers, who are people too, and they do things like put JavaScript on pages or do some very strange things sometimes. And so instead, we might just end up with this Murphy stew. And what I like to say, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And then Smith said Murphy was an optimist. And I say anything that can break will break, and things that can't possibly break will break. I worked for a site that pushed out a new mobile site. They had an old M.dot site, new mobile site. And for 3 months, unbeknownst to me, unfortunately, we were actually cloaking and still serving Google the old dumb M.dot site. So we had this great new mobile site, but for 3 months we were giving Google the wrong site. So things break. And then stuff happens. And when I say stuff, I mean stuff. Stuff. No index or no follows appearing or disappearing. Broken redirects can be really nasty. Canonicals disappearing or appearing or canonicling to something that doesn't render or is no index. Analytics tags, robots. Href lying tags, there's more stuff to worry about. JS hiding content because Google still has troubles with that. So we got all this nasty stuff happening. And then sometimes, you're looking and you can't find that problem. Traffic dropped and there's no problem, but still there's some doubt because you have imperfect knowledge of what's happened to your site. And people start wondering, did something break? So you start going to the Internet Archive and comparing versions. Or maybe you're wondering, did the other guys do something? Because we don't have perfect knowledge. So then this stuff happens, right? Sorry. We actually have an older version of my presentation. But that's okay. It's good enough. It's a little bit longer. So I'll have to figure out where to skip. Sorry. But this is the real life. This was the one I was talking about earlier. This was 6 months post-migration. Our redirect stopped working. And that's a really hard problem to catch because you're working on your site. Everything works fine. URLs had changed. And our traffic took a dramatic drop because the site worked fine. But one-line server change. This problem, no index nightmare. Site accidentally, this is a friend of mine's site. I remember he calls me up, he's desperate. I was in a company meeting. He told me something bad is happening to my site. It so happens it was the same day as the Panda update, but it wasn't the Panda problem. I went back and looked at his page. He had a no index on every tag. It's a sad story because he actually came back at 15% less. He never actually recovered and got the traffic back that he was hoping for. And then, let's skip through a couple of these. So let's look at our clown again. You know, something happened to our clown. He's not working anymore. Kids don't laugh anymore. People scream. Our clown doesn't work anymore. Something happened to our clown. Does anyone know what happened to our clown? Lots of stuff happened to our clown. He's got different buttons. He's got a different hat. He's got different collar. A lot of things have changed to our clown. Now imagine how hard, easy for us to know because we have a side-by-side snapshot, but imagine how hard it would be if we didn't have the snapshot. So the same thing is true with our websites, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Taking your snapshot, taking an archive of your site is key because that helps us get control so we know exactly what's happened to our site. We want to snapshot our HTML, screenshots, parse out key elements, HTTP status. We want to keep our snapshots. That will help us get control. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. So we really want to get into the situation where there's no more surprises. Surprises sometimes are good, sometimes they're bad. But when stuff happens, you want to just know about it. No more emergency fixes, no explanations. So, you know, training and education is the first part. You want to train and overtrain your engineers. And then we also want to use tools, and we want to automate. I'll talk about how we can use BrightEdge and SEO Radar. So let's take a quick look at this process. See what we're doing on time. So we take a baseline. I'll go through this process. Baseline audit. So that's, you want to start with something like BrightEdge. We've all got BrightEdge mostly. So take a baseline audit. You know where you are. Do an archive, and then you do a compare, and then you use that to alert and analyze. So moving on. So the baseline, what the baseline lets you know is it lets you understand the current state of your site. Once you have a clean baseline, things become easier because then you just need to know what's changed. And then there's the BrightEdge audit screen. So then you take a site snapshot and you archive, which I mentioned already. And then what you want to do is run a diff. So you want to do a diff between all your on-page elements and look what's changed. If you know that if an H1 hasn't changed, you know your H1s are okay. If a rel canonical hasn't disappeared, you know your rel canonicals haven't disappeared. So you just want to know the changes. And then you want an alert. So you don't want to depend on manually have to checking things, right? You want to be able to automatically know when things happen. So the automation is what's key. You want a process that's going to automatically take your snapshots, store your archive so you can go back in time. Prior to a new release, we want to monitor the live system, but we also want to check your staging site. We want to make sure staging, you want to catch things if possible before things get pushed live. You still want to monitor the live site because we have dynamic sites and we still want to make sure we know what got pushed live, but we want to do both. And yeah, we want it automated. This is where a tool like SEO Radar comes in the middle. So we'll actually, we'll do a crawl, we'll take the snapshots, we'll do the archive, and we'll do the diff. If a rel canonical gets deleted, we'll generate an alert for you. If H1 changes or a redirect pops up or 301 changes to a 302, we check over 100 different things. But the goal of this is only to show you what changed. It doesn't take place of an audit. It's going to tell you what changed that you need to know about, actually to provide you a minimum amount of information to let you know things are healthy, either before you push your site live from staging or afterwards. And then you can actually do a side-by-side compare. So it really, we save the data going back 6 months to a year, and it gives you the ability to go back and see exactly what's happened to your site. And quick wrap up. So SEO is key points to take away. It's too valuable, too fragile, too risky in complex enterprise environments, or if you're an agency monitoring your customer sites, to not know what's going on with the site. So implementing a change management and monitoring process will just make your life a lot easier. The key to protecting your site and your sanity is deep visibility into what happens to your site, as well as education to help engineering and to your engineering teams and other stakeholders. And that's it. Thank you.